All right, in the meantime, we are less than 100 days away until the 2018 midterms. President Trump jumped back on the campaign trail last night. In fact, he was in Florida pushing hard for Republicans to win close races come November. He endorsed Representative Ron DeSantis for governor and also current Governor Rick Scott, who is battling for a seat in Congress.
Bud, as alarms blare about Russian interference in the elections, the Trump administration is facing criticism that it has had no clear national strategy to protect the country during the upcoming midterms and beyond. Activist Lauren Leader-Chevet, did I say that right, Lauren?
You did.
All right, she weighs in on this one tonight. Nice. Good to see you tonight. So let's talk about this, because there has been so much made about interference in the election, election security. Yet we haven't heard a lot. We know that the president has said in various ways that they're serious about fighting this, but are they really serious about fighting this?
Well, that's a real question, and I think lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have been raising the alarm about that. Lindsey Graham has put out a number of statements, and the president's own national security director, Dan Coats, has raised concerns. You know, there's a lot of factors here that are question the seriousness of the commitment of the administration to protecting the integrity of the elections. You know, they fired the main cybersecurity expert in the White House. John Bolton did that back in May because he wanted to streamline the bureaucracy inside the White House. But the reality is that aside from Homeland Security, there isn't anyone really coordinating the response. And every single state, every single campaign, every single elected official, and every single agency is potentially at risk. It's very concerning that this has been in some ways a haphazard and frankly not especially serious effort.
How much do you think the president's past denials that Russia didn't have anything to do with the election meddling also has helped lower confidence that the U.S. is prepared and ready to handle this?
Well, that's what and I think many people are most worried about, which is, are we actually inviting additional attacks because we've signaled so clearly to foreign and bad actors that we're not especially serious about this. And I also think that the politicization of this issue is just the worst possible outcome. I mean, the president not only has, been incredibly unwilling to frankly call out the Russians until very recently, he's also politicized it by saying in his recent tweets that he thinks the Russians are trying to favor the Democrats in the election, which of course there's no evidence that that's the case. It's extremely concerning because ultimately this is about the integrity of our democracy, and for voters to believe that the outcomes of any election are valid, and for the fundamental integrity of an independent democracy, which is of course the bedrock of who we are as a nation, we need to know that we can have confidence in our elections. I'm also concerned, frankly, about the possibility of hacking of voting machines. They're extremely vulnerable. This is left largely up to individual states, and depending on the kinds of budgets that individual states control and their own ability to handle cyber attacks, we have a lot of vulnerability in the system, and it's very disturbing.
Lauren, we're almost out of time, but I'm glad you mentioned about the voting machines, because it's amazing. The conversation shifted from in 2000, after the fiasco in Florida with the recount, everybody went to electronic voting machines. And now you're seeing a lot more states saying, you know what, maybe we need to go back to the old school ballot optical scanners. I mean, is that really the best way to do that and to really maintain the integrity of the systems by not putting all the information out there?
Well, it might be, and not every state did. I mean, in my own state of New York, we still use the old-fashioned, there's a lot of old-fashioned voting, which has its own problems. But the problem is we have no federal oversight for this, and it's up to every individual state. And there's good reasons for that, but it's also very concerning. We need a major national effort and a commitment to protecting the integrity of our democracy, which is not political. It's really about the fundamental independence of our nation and the ability of our citizens to decide the outcomes of every election.
I will say this, 2005, she's right about New York voting machines. In 2005, which was the last year I lived in New York State, and they still had the giant old honkin' voting machines that look like the size of an old Chrysler.
Talk about antiquated.
Yeah.
You're dating yourself.
Antiquated, but maybe safer. And I think that's the question, is we don't have any definitive answer about what really is the safest way to protect our votes and make sure the integrity of our elections.
Well, no doubt everybody will be watching, because this is certainly going to be an issue that everybody is thinking about and talking about. Activist Lauren Leader-Chevet, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.